Hi.
Hi.
Can I talk to you for a second, Mrs. Gibson?
Sure. Come on in,
Okay.
Jessica. How are you? Have a seat.
I'm okay. I'm alright.
Okay.
I'm feeling really stressed out, and I feel a lot of anxiety right now. I'm just really worried. I've got 4 exams coming up. I've got 4 final projects. I've got tests, and I feel sick. I feel like I'm not going to be able to finish the year.
Okay. This can be a very overwhelming time of year for everybody, with all the major tests coming up and culminating activities and exams to get ready for. Everyone has a hard time juggling so many things at once.
Yeah, I don't understand why everything has to be due at the last minute. My projects are worth 10%. My exams are worth 20%. I still have final tests as well too. I just feel like they just pile everything on all at once. It's all worth so much, and I'm afraid that if I don't do well on these, I'm not going to do well for the rest of the year. I feel actually sick. I feel actually physically sick.
Right. Okay. So what I hear you saying is that you're feeling very overwhelmed about all the things that need to happen between now and the end of the year, and that you're feeling some stress about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm really stressed out because I do well on projects, I do well on assignments, but then as soon as it comes test time or even worse exam time, I totally blank, and it's worth so much on my mark that I'm just really afraid I'm going to blow it with 2 hours.
Okay. Can you tell me more about that? Some of your experience writing tests?
Yeah, I mean, so when I go into a test, I prepare, I study, I spend all night studying. I go into a test and I look at the test and I look at the first question, I totally blank. But not just that, like my hand is shaking, my heart starts beating, I get mouth sweats as well too. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I feel like I can't even focus on anything at the test, and everything I knew before then just gone.
That sounds frustrating.
Yeah, it is. It's very frustrating because I do well in my classes. I prepare for these tests, and then in one instance, it's gone.
Okay, so I hear you saying you're doing well in classes normally, so can you tell me maybe about how you do on assignments and projects?
Yeah, I do well in projects. I got a 94 on my last paper in evolution.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That must feel really good to do well.
It does. It's amazing, and that's what's so frustrating about tests, and that's what's so frustrating about exams, is I do the homework, and I feel like it's not being shown in my test. It looks like I didn't study at all when I spent all night studying. So I do well on projects.
Okay, excellent. Okay. So you're mentioning when you're writing tests, you feel like you're blanking or you're not being able to write everything that you felt like you prepared for.
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of some time when that's happened to you?
So I go into a test, and this used to happen when I was in elementary school as well too, but not as bad now that I'm in high school, just because there were so much. So I go into a test. Last week I wrote my bio test. Like I said, I got 94% on my evolution paper. It was awesome. I went to go write in my bio test as well too, and I actually almost passed out. I could feel my heart beating, my hand was shaking, I got dizzy, I got nauseous, and I couldn't even finish the test. And I have a test coming up on Monday.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying is you're experiencing some really uncomfortable feelings when it comes time to writing your tests, and you feel like you have been preparing, and that you experienced some of this before, like maybe in public school you were saying you had some of this, but maybe now it's a little more overwhelming because it's the semester system and you have 4 tests and 4 projects and a lot of things happening at the same time, and that can be hard to juggle.
Yeah, sometimes I don't eat, sometimes I don't sleep a lot of the time as well too. It really takes over my whole week, and I feel like I can't focus on anything else. And I have other commitments too. I work, I play sports as well too, and I can't focus on those because I'm worried about a test. I know I'm going to fail anyways.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is it sounds like you have some anxious feelings in and around writing your tests, and in terms of not performing is how you'd like to.
Yeah, that's me. Absolutely.
Okay. Have you ever talked to your parents or your teachers about this?
No. If I talk to my parents about it, they would just tell me to study more, that I'm not spending enough time on school, and they don't understand that it's not studying, it's just remembering.
So you feel worried about how your parents are going to respond?
Yeah, I couldn't talk to them about it.
Okay. What about your teachers? Have you talked to your teachers about it?
Not really. I guess I kind of figured that they would see me struggling and just see that I'm not doing well. But I feel embarrassed to talk to them as well too. I feel like they think that I'm not studying as well too.
Okay. So again, what I hear you saying is that you do have some of these nervous feelings, and I just want to talk briefly about that. Again, to let you know that that's fairly common, right? Especially when performance really counts. So I know I've coached you in volleyball. So for example, think about how many times, we've been in a game and it's coming down to the game point and someone goes up to serve, and what can happen sometimes?
I choke. I choke. Yeah, no, that happens all the time. I know, depending on the pressure of the game as well too. I know I can serve, and then I've done it a million times, and then sometimes in that instance, I can mess up for no reason.
Sure, it happens to everyone, right?
Yeah.
Or think about someone maybe in the school drama play, and maybe they freeze up right before they write something. So a lot of times when performance really counts the most is when people can experience some of those really uncomfortable feelings. So you were mentioning before, you felt, you're sweating, your heart's racing, you're feeling some butterflies. So again, those can be common feelings, and sometimes they can be used to help us perform, but if they're too extreme, then sometimes they take away from our ability to do and to perform how we know we can.
Right, which is why I'm in feelings, yes.
Okay, which is funny. Okay. What do you wish it would be like when you were going to write your test?
I wish that I could sit down, not feel nervous, not feel anxious, because it's distracting when I'm trying to focus on a test and my head is spinning and my hand is shaking and I feel nauseous. I wish I could just sit down, feel confident, and remember everything that I studied.
Okay, so again, I hear you saying that you wish you didn't feel those feelings of whether they're anxiety or a little bit of stress. And again, normally when you're experiencing a stressful situation, so you're focused on your exam, but you're also having sort of a physical response to that as well. And that's where you're getting some of those uncomfortable feelings that you're sharing with me.
Yeah, exactly. I can't focus on what I'm thinking because I'm feeling so sick.
Okay. So you mentioned that you have a test on Monday.
Yeah, I do, which I'm not confident in at all.
Okay. So can you share for me how you've prepared for that test so far?
Well, I gathered my notes.
Okay.
And then normally what I'd do if I was studying for a test is I would just read over my notes a bunch of times, start to finish, to memorize them. That's what I normally do, is just memorize my notes, because I'm afraid that if I don't look at all of my notes, that I'm going to miss something and it's going to be on the test and I'm not going to know it. So I usually read them start to finish until I memorize them.
Okay, so you're spending time reading over all of your notes. Is there anything else that you do to prepare?
I'm not going to lie, a lot of the time the night before I'll spend a lot of time studying. So about 6 hours a night usually before I try to remember. Then usually about 3 hours before it's time to go to bed, I start to feel like that panic feeling, like, oh my goodness, I don't know this, I'm not confident in this, and then I stay up later and later trying to get ready for this test. I end up falling asleep in my notes half the time. So and then I start to panic, then I'm tired and I'm writing the test too.
Well, of course. So what I hear you saying in terms of how you're studying is that typically you try to memorize all your notes that you have for the course, and that sometimes you end up trying to do that late at night, falling asleep on your bed as you're trying to prepare the night before.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happens.
Okay. I do have a few different study techniques that I think we could maybe discuss a little bit and try to add to maybe some of the things you're trying to do now. So I do have some literature here. So I'm just going to have you take a quick look at this list. And let's start with picking maybe 3. So 3 things that you think that you could try, and we'll sort of work our way through them, that would help you perform better, or at least enhance some of your studying.
Okay, well, 1 for sure.
Okay.
4, and then I guess 7.
Okay. So 1, 4, and 7. So let's just take a quick look. Let's go through them, and then we'll sort of see what that might mean for you. So how you could try that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So number 1, let's take a look at that one that you picked. So it says, so try not to do all of your studying the night before the test. Instead, space it out and focus on one topic at a time. What do you think that that would mean for you?
I guess it would mean not leaving it until the last minute, right? Like not studying 6 hours before a test, but starting it throughout the week.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess that would mean starting, if my test is on Monday next week, it's Tuesday today, so I guess that would mean studying tonight.
Right, and if you try to maybe chunk it into smaller sections, so you were saying earlier that you try to memorize everything within a day or so. So tonight, for example, you could start and maybe take 45 minutes and just start studying some of your material.
Okay. All right. That sounds like something I could do.
Perfect. Then you picked next, I think you said you picked number 4?
Yeah.
So number 4 on your sheet says, start out by studying the most important information first. how do you think you can find out what that important information is?
I don't know. That's where I have such a hard time, is I'm always afraid of leaving something out of my notes. I guess I could ask someone else in the class if I could borrow their notes, their study notes,
Okay.
or ask them what they think is important as well too.
Okay, you could talk to someone else in the class, but has your teacher given you maybe like a test review, or do your teachers sometimes give you, reviews for tests or even for your upcoming exams?
Yeah, I mean, they gave us a list of topics of stuff that could be covered on the test, like bullet points, and then they gave us chapter questions as well to do.
Okay, well that would be a great place to start.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I never thought of that.
Yeah, and you can sit down, as we said, try and do 45 minutes tonight, maybe try another 45 minutes tomorrow, and just work your way through that review.
Okay.
And finally, you pick number 7. So it said testing yourself or having someone test you on the material to sort of find out the things that you know and some of the things that maybe you need more help on.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know how to test myself is the issue, right? Is I'm gonna ask myself test questions that I do know, or why would I ask myself a test question that I don't know the answer to? So I don't know how to test myself is the issue.
Have you thought about maybe involving your parents in some of the studying? Like you could study a section and then ask them to go over it with you?
No, if I ask my parents, they're gonna tell me that I don't study enough and make me study more. But it's not the fact that I don't study, it's the fact that I don't remember some of these things are the issue.
So you prefer not to do that with your parents?
No, definitely not.
Okay, you're worried about how they'll respond or how they'll
Yeah,
what you're studying?
they just don't understand what it's like. They can look at something, they can remember something, they both did really well in school, and they have no issues remembering things. I study probably harder than they did, I just can't remember a lot of the content when I get to the test, and I blank and I freeze.
Have you ever thought about using a peer tutor that we have here at the school?
I don't even know that. I don't know what that is.
Have you never heard
I
that before?
don't know.
Okay. So what we have here at the school are, we do have peer tutors, so it would be someone about your age who's taken the course before and who would be familiar with the content and also, is pretty confident in terms of their study skills or their ability to work with you and help you prepare for your tests. Is that something you might be interested in trying?
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. So they quiz me and ask me questions that I don't know and stuff like that?
Sure, I mean, the two of you can kind of decide how you want to go about it, but they could help you, maybe highlighting some of your material, or you could study a section, you could make flashcards or something, and the two of you could work together and they could, you could quiz yourself that way.
Okay, I like that. That's awesome. I've heard of flashcards, but I've never had anyone to make them with before, so I like that. And they come to my house?
No, they don't come to your house. So we do it here at the school. We can either do it at lunchtime, or we could also do it after school. We have times where there's peer tutors available. And if I just look at my schedule, I think I can probably get you in with someone tomorrow for lunch. Why don't we start there?
Okay.
And you can have a meeting with them. You can see how it goes.
Okay.
And if you're happy with it, then we could set up probably a couple more sessions before your test on Monday.
Okay, and that way I can study a bit tonight too, maybe like 45 minutes, go over my notes. Maybe they could even help me figure out what ideas are important too for the test.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think it's definitely worth a try.
Okay, awesome. And how long does the session last for?
Well, if it's at lunch, it'll be about half an hour.
That's perfect. So that'll make me study every day too, right?
Right.
Okay, I like that.
And if you have time after school, you could always be here till, 3:30, 4 o'clock, or depending on a ride home, but we could certainly work out some time with that as well.
Okay, awesome. I like that. I'm still nervous for my test on Monday. I'm still worried that I'm going to blank and forget a lot of the information.
Okay. Well, number one, I think feeling prepared for it will hopefully help with that. But I do hear you saying that you're still feeling some anxiety around that.
Yeah, no, it's just the nerves. I think is the big thing for me. Is now I'm more confident in the information. I'm just worried about how I feel while I'm writing it.
Okay. Can you tell me more about what you experienced in the past when you've been writing tests in class?
Okay, so I come in, I get my test, I look at the first question. If I don't know it, I blank, and I really have a hard time moving past the first question. And then I'll look around, the rest of the class is writing, so they all get it, clearly. I'm the only one that's stuck on the first question. Then I'll hear someone ask a question, and I don't even know what the question means or the content for it. So I freak out for that, and then people start handing their tests in, and I'm not even done the first question yet. Right? I just feel really like I don't know the information. I have such a hard time focusing on everyone else, or on myself, because I'm focusing on everyone else in the class.
Okay, so you feel distracted by the other people in the room,
Yeah.
maybe if they're asking questions, or when they finish your test, that's a distraction to you when they're getting up to hand that in?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I don't know my stuff, which makes me panic even more, right? Because they were able to finish it so fast.
Have you ever talked to your teachers about what you're experiencing during your tests?
Not really. I usually, I guess I just assumed since I take longer to write them, they would have noticed that, and it would just be kind of, I feel silly bringing it up. I feel like they would judge me.
Okay, well, I'm glad you shared it with me, and I think it's something that you could share with your teachers as well.
Okay.
I mean, they obviously want you to do well, and they want you to be comfortable when you're writing a test.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about writing a test in the resource room?
I've actually never even been there before.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure if you know where it is, and I can take you there after if you want to see it.
Okay.
But it is, you know, on the 3rd floor, and it's just a nice place where you could go. So during the test, you would go to that room, and there would be maybe a few other students in the room, but they'd be working on other material. So you wouldn't have the distraction of, you know, 25 other people around you writing a test, or you wouldn't have to have, you know, if people are asking questions, you know, it'd just be a quieter place, a different environment for you to try to write it.
So I don't have to write in the room with my class with everyone else?
Right, so you'd be going to a different room, and you would be in a a nice quiet spot, and you could try it that way.
Amazing. Okay. And just me, like, what if I have a question about the test or something like that?
Well, there is usually like a resource teacher in there that could, in all likelihood, help you, but I know that if they couldn't answer your question, then they would certainly be able to discuss it with your teacher. You could always, at the end of the test, when you take it back up at the end of the period, if you had something you weren't sure of, that would be a good chance to talk to your teacher then.
Okay. Can I write my exam there too?
It's something we could consider, sure. Why don't we see how you do with your test on Monday, and then if you think that that's helping, that's reducing some of the uncomfortable feelings that you're having, then it's certainly something we could discuss.
Okay. All right. Okay, so that at least I wouldn't be feeling judged by everyone else. Okay, I like that.
All right. So I think now we have a few good strategies in terms of how you're going to prepare for the test.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's really, I'm interested to see how Monday goes.
Okay, yeah. I'm still nervous for exams, but.
Okay, well, let's take it one step at a time. I do want to talk to you very briefly. I have another piece of literature I want you to look at that I want to go over. Just in terms of some of those anxious feelings that you've been experiencing. I mean, again, it's common. A lot of people have them. So if we go through this, I'm going to pick just a couple, and then I want to talk about maybe how that might help you in your situation. So here's a good example. So a good way to reduce test anxiety is exercising a few days before the test will help reduce stress.
Okay, I never thought about that. I do feel a lot better when I run. That's one of the things that I do for stress relieving is running. I guess I've always felt if I take the time away from studying that I would take to run, that I would remember less information on the test.
Okay, well, it does make sense that you would think that, but in reality, you know, if you take, you know, a 45-minute time frame, do some studying, and then take a break, get some exercise, relieve some of that, you know, nervousness or whatever you're feeling, and then put it to good use, right? So taking something and exchanging it with a positive, you know, often will help.
Okay, that makes sense. And a lot of the time I spend just staring at my notes anyway, so I guess getting outside would be nice.
Okay.
Okay.
What about, let me see here. So it says, oh, do you ever do this? It says, if you don't know a question, skip it for the time being and then come back to it later. Have you ever tried that?
No, and you know what, that makes sense because normally I get stuck on the first question, I panic because I don't know it, and then I spend my whole time trying to answer a question that I don't know. So I've never done that before.
Okay, so how about on the test on Monday, if you see the first couple questions and as soon as you get stuck on one, let's try and just take a deep breath, move on to the next question, and just keep working your way through the test. You know, again, it's important that you just try to relax, take some deep breaths, just, you know, just know that we're going to slowly work our way through it.
Okay, that makes sense. I like that. That sounds better.
Okay. And then finally, here's one I think that might apply to you. It says, get a good night's sleep before the test.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I need to stop falling asleep on my notes. I'll take my notes to bed, panic, and I don't gain anything out of it. I feel tired the next day. I feel sometimes I have headaches because I'm so tired.
Okay. So I think, again, we have a few study techniques for you to try. I'll set you up with a peer tutor. And I did want to mention to you, so if you are starting to study, you know, this week, and it's in the evening, and you're really experiencing some anxiety, you did mention you didn't want to discuss that with your parents, but I do have a resource here, so it's a number that if you really want to talk to somebody, and you just want to sort of get those feelings off your chest, or let, you know, someone help you through them, I do have a number here that you could call for that.
Okay.
So keep that with you.
All right. And I can call that number anytime? Or
You can.
Okay.
You can. Okay, and it's a Niagara number, so you can use it if you feel that way. And
Okay, that's awesome, because I always feel like I get home and I have other questions, and I don't want to talk to my parents. I have no one else to talk to.
Okay, so you have some resources there.
Awesome.
And I think that we should meet again next week. So let's see how your test goes. So let's try to put these things in place. So you'll work on some of the study techniques that we picked. You'll work with your peer tutor, and let's try and get some rest and some exercise in between. And then we'll meet next Tuesday, and we'll see how everything went.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. You're fabulous.
Well, thank you for coming to see me. I appreciate you talking to me.
Okay, thanks.
All
See
right,
ya.
see you later.